for the Naiji, going along with their peak pathway, they have the Z and Vi as the absolute last two powers. So this corresponds with their top two powers, which are Nai and Ji. So these are the far compositional relationships. So this is actually like the mea culpa. The mea culpa, I think it is right, of being a Naiji is how to actually bring these two things together. Now everyone has to deal with this, but for Naiji, they actually in their conscious powers and in their peak pathway have powers that are very, very far apart in the scientific spirituality index. Their modulation powers, they're like really, really far. So these things actually do go together as one, but not to be over melodramatic. There is a element of destruction and creation of the way that was becoming the way that will be now. So that actually is part of natural law. But both sides of that equation tend to not see it that way. The powers that be want to stay like that, and then Naiji, who basically tend to be seeing ways for people, Naiji, that are going to take them on paths of enlightenment that are going to quickly, and by definition, outstrip parameters set down by Z and Vi. In fact, it's almost like that's seen as a cage that must be broken out of in order to get the progress done that needs getting doing. So, done properly, it's one of the recipes for some of the greatest things that have happened in this planet as far as development. And this happens naturally, instinctually, but it can be more or less traumatic. And the thing is that this is one of the best mathematical arguments of why the Naiji must not be Fozen. And that's because if you stay up in the mountains, praying, meditating, or just hanging out with a few of your elite metaphysical buddies, then you stay disconnected from the status quo, which has a lot to do with Z and Vi. That's sort of like the protocols for how things are done. I mean, if I had to say, I mean, that's almost like reads as a sentence. The protocols for how things are done. So that needs to change and update, and the Naiji needs to not be in fantasy la-la land. So the rubber must hit the road, as it were. So the rubber must hit the road, but then also the powers that be need to be updated because they never know fully what the cosmos is, Nai, or what that means for people. Z and Vi tend to be a little slow on picking up with that. So not that they are anything less than Nai or Ji, it's just different, and that's not their strong suit. That's the strong suit of Nai and Ji. So there needs to be a developing of this, and then you have to go to the Zai to actually bring in being able to debate that or use that in a practical way and not have it fall apart. And then be able to do that so often, so reliably that you know you possess that power that not only is in your phenomena, your simulator, your Tao, the visions you see, you can actually enact that. So when you see the visions of you doing a double, triple somersault, you walk up and you do a double, triple somersault. So that is starting to make it more concrete. It's also making it more difficult to remain in fidelity to the spirit forms. But it can be done if you use the proper fetishing. If the Ji, shapeshifting, it gives you the role to enact the story you're seeing. And then you Zai it up so that actually it works when given logical pushback. And then, this doesn't mean you like Z. We're far, far away from that at this point. We've actually just got to where we are practical. So many a directed mantic who hates the man is very, very good with their Zai, but that doesn't mean they're cool with Z. It just means they do recognize that when they tell their friends that if you do A, B, and C, that you can do such and such and not get caught. You can, in fact, do A, B, and C and not get caught. But there's no love for Z at all at this point. Okay. Going on to V, it's a demonstration that what you say natural law will happen, such as the various predictions that many Naiji cosmologists and astrologers have done. That's a V demonstration. But it's not like what some Naiji fear of like whoring out. Because you're not. You're actually allowing natural law to just put on a show. So that's allowed. You're allowed to do that, still be a totally, heroic, pure, faithful to natural law Naiji and do that. So then, you got the Ni and the Jai come in, they're like, ooh, great job. And they think that what you did is really cool. It's actually going to make people feel better, and it's actually totally possible. Why didn't people think of this before? That's actually the crucial link to Z. It is actually possible. That's actually possible to do everywhere. And so Ni sees that, and so it's a long journey. As you can see, just even talking about this, it's a long journey to get from cool ideas you have, out in mountaintops with your friends, doing whatever it is that Naiji hippie badasses do, and when they have these thoughts, taking it down the mountain and doing something with it. But if you don't do that, there will remain a huge disconnect between the other humans and what's going up in these mountaintop places, and that's not supposed to happen. That's actually unheroic to keep. If you truly do have enlightenment, kind of like Plato's cave, you have to go back and share it no matter how hard it is. That's just not an option to do anything else. And then B is, oftentimes there will become factions of those who are living this sort of commune lifestyle, and these people are living this other lifestyle, not unlike the 70s, and they are like two different worlds. And they can remain like that if there's not effort for them to reach a point that they're actually talking to one another as one actually holistic whole, or holistic entity. Does that make sense? Yay. So long story short is, Naiji, because of this, tend to have a rather anti-establishment bent to them, because the Z and Vi are so deep in the unconscious that generally they come out of nowhere. So although for most people Z and Vi actually seems to be one of the most concrete, reliable powers, not to Naiji. A lot of Naiji feel kind of like the system messes with them, like Murphy Law fucks with them. So instead of actually trying to figure out the disconnect between their simulators natural law, which is very natural law, and the actual reality's natural law, because they really are one thing. But without really a lot of work, they really don't seem like it. And there's a great deal of anger and frustration at this, and it seems like that other world, the reality world, that has laws and time schedules and things, that you constantly score badly. In this world, the simulated world, you're like a heroic stud, but out here you keep scoring poorly. So it makes for two things. Ironically, a lot of Naiji, not the majority of them, but many of them, well, maybe in the majority, actually, we'll have to see how the data unfolds. And this is the point of this book, is where this isn't an unfolding thing. The data so far shows that a lot of Naiji don't admit to being Naiji. That's one thing, and so this is probably part of it. It's very hard to fight the system, particularly when it's seen as so daunting and bad. And this is key. Naiji are built to do it, but it's still seen as rather daunting. A lot of Naiji who do recognize themselves as Naiji are extremely angry towards the powers that be for making their job so fucking hard, and for having such bracing repercussions when you mess up. So the one tier above that you're shooting for is actually to recognize that this is all an 8-power system, the community. And Z is actually part of it, and Z helps you. Z gives you medicine. Z does all these cool things. Vi remembers where you put shit when you really need to know where you put stuff. So it's not trying to give you a hard time. It's modulating you. Naiji and Jinai tend to take the modulation personally. But in the end of the day, it really is math. And so there needs to be an acceptance that, for example, and the Naiji does this a lot, as does the Jinai, of being able to connect what the people need in a visionary way with the way the world works as far as the nuts and bolts of it. That's very demanding, but it's also, it's the most demanding actually, mathematically, but mathematically it's also the most rewarding. But it needs special mention in this section because, like many of the Naiji things, because of the intensity of Naiji, mentioned in many other sections, and the shape-shifting, there is this, again, quality of 4951 of basically treating the system as like this all-powerful Borg that you're going to fuck over in cloaked stealth mode. Or you actively announce that you can't stand it and try to kick it in the nuts whenever you can. Or 3, you realize that you and this must merge into one uber being that has all the consciousnesses. Yeah, so that's a tall order, but that is what must be done. But there's a reason why a lot of Naiji don't get there. It's very daunting, and the differences on how they play it are extreme, which is why there's so many, again, manifestations of the Naiji. Is if a Naiji plays it one way, they'll have a radical different shape-shifting character. Yeah. If they play it another way, it'll be a radically different character. There are Naiji that are like hunters in suits. They're like slick GQ predators. And there are completely feral biker badass gang leaders who can't stand the system, will actually take shots at you just because you're a cop. They're both Naiji, and they're actually both reacting strongly to the prevalence of the Z-Vi powers that be and deciding which way to play it. And that's crucial. If you know what you're looking at, both are obviously Naiji, but a lot of people find that very throwing. Sleek GQ, ultra-groomed predator in a suit versus, you know, like Viking clan chief in modern times. But they are in fact a Naiji reacting to that phenomenon. The anti-establishment when you feel you got a tribe of superheroes, and you and your tribe of superheroes need to deal with this merchandise life. There's a great deal of condescension towards money brought in, and a lot of Naiji rappers, for example, they are very derogatory towards money, but also lewd in its effect on people and what they can do with it. So that actually has to do with money, is very much associated with Z, and so that's another one that seems to throw a lot of people, is money. Because the other one, anti-establishment, you're like, okay, but some people don't understand exactly what that means. It can mean something simple as whether or not you do money. A lot of Naiji will take the tack of fetishing on that, of I can't stand it, I don't like to deal with it, I find it vulgar. Or they become like gurus of money. It becomes something that they really want to master, and you must look at what the impetus for doing that is. The one thing to look for is there will almost always be a strong opinion. An extremely strong opinion on how one deals with the system, the powers that be.